Far below the gentle hills of Ohio, something amazing waits in the dark. Huge rooms made of stone, cut with unbelievable precision. Mounds of earth shaped into patterns that have no easy explanation. Objects found there that shouldn't exist based on what we think we know about North American history. Tonight, we travel to the center of America's most mysterious state. Here, ancient secrets make us question what we know of the past and hint at lost cultures. What if all you were taught about early America was missing pieces? What if the people who built the mounds in Ohio knew things that today's science is just starting to figure out again? From the puzzling Serpent Mound to the baffling Newark Earthworks, Ohio holds puzzles that have confused scientists for more than 200 years. But this isn't just another story about forgotten people and empty towns. This is about clues that point to complex math, star knowledge, and building skills that match anything made in the ancient world. Clues that suggest links across continents and societies that may have been much more advanced than we ever thought. Some people say the answers are hidden in government storage. Others think the truth was hidden on purpose by early settlers who couldn't understand what they had found. Tonight, we will look at both the recorded puzzles and the secret ideas that swirl around Ohio's ancient history. Chapter 1. The Serpent's Secret in Adams County, Ohio. A giant earthen snake curves across the land like a memory turned to bite stone from another time. It is over 1,300 feet long from its head to its tail. The Great Serpent Mound is one of the most mysterious things ever built in North America. But here is what is strange. Nobody knows who built it, when they built it, or why they picked this exact spot. The common story says it was made by the Adena people sometime between 800 BC and 100 AD. That is what the school books say. That is what the park guides will tell you. Common beliefs have a funny way of falling apart when you start looking closer at the details that do not quite fit the story. First, let us talk about the place itself. The snake was not just put on any old hill. It sits on top of a special kind of rock formation made millions of years ago when forces under the ground exploded up through the rock. How did ancient people, who we think had only stone tools and basic star knowledge, find this one-of-a-kind rock feature? The chance of picking this spot just by luck. Tiny. We are talking about choosing one special place out of thousands of possible hilltops in southern Ohio. Yet, these unknown builders knew just where to put their snake-shaped masterpiece. But the location riddle is only the start. The way the snake lines up tells an even stranger tale. Its head points to where the sun sets on the longest day of summer. The curves of its body followed the moon cycle with amazing accuracy. This is not just casual star watching. This is deep star knowledge written in tons of carefully placed dirt. Now here is where it gets really strange. New studies show the Serpent Mound lines up not just with how the sky moves now, but with star positions from thousands of years in the past. The builders were not just watching the sky, they were keeping track of a very slow wobble in how the Earth spins, which changes how we see the stars over very long periods. Understanding this needs math and watching skills that we did not think existed in early America. Think about this. The ancient Greeks are said to be some of the first to understand this wobble around 150 BC. Yet, the Serpent Mound star dot alignment suggests its builders knew about these ideas centuries, maybe even thousands of years earlier. How does that fit with what we believe about how technology grew in the Americas? Some experts have an even more argued about idea. They think the snake's winding shape shows not just star knowledge, but real sky events its builders saw. Could the curve show the path of a comet? Could the whole structure be for remembering some spaceboat event ancient people saw in the skies over Ohio? Dr. Bradley Lepper, a well-respected Ohio scientist, has spent years studying the mound. Even he says there are parts that are hard to explain. The exactness of the building, the deep understanding of the land, the star alignments all point to a level of cultural skill that makes us question what we assume about early America. But here is what really keeps scientists up at night. The Serpent Mound is not alone. Similar snake shapes have been found all over the world, from Scotland to Australia. How did different cultures with no known contact make such very similar symbols? Was this something they each came up with on their own, or proof of some shared knowledge that which spread among ancient societies? The snake symbol itself has deep meaning in almost every human culture. Wisdom, brought change, cosmic power, the circle of life and death. Why would different people keep choosing this special shape to show their most sacred ideas? Is it possible the builders of Ohio's Great Snake were part of a much bigger, more connected world than we have ever imagined? Old stories from Ohio's Native American tribes talk of the snake as a protector, a guardian of old wisdom, buried under the earth. Some tales describe rooms hidden below the mound, filled with objects and knowledge from a time before memory. Officially, no such rooms have been found. Unofficially, well, that is where things get interesting. Chapter 2. Newark's Impossible Shapes. 30 miles northeast of Columbus is what may be the most mathematically complex site ever made in early America. The Newark Earthworks originally covered more than 4 square miles, making it bigger than Egypt's Great Pyramid area. What is left today is only about 10% of the original build. Yet even these pieces show a geometric exactness that should not be possible without advanced math knowledge. But here is the thing, we are not talking about simple circles and squares. The Newark Earthworks use complex shape relationships that were not formally found by European math until much later. The 8-sided shape and circle at the center of the site show an understanding of advanced geometry that would have needed generations of math development. Let us break this down in a way that might surprise you. The 8-sided part measures exactly 50 acres in size. The connected circle is also exactly 0.50 acres. But making this exact link between an 8-sided shape and a circle is not simple math. It needs an understanding of square roots and shape relationships we did not think existed in early America. James Marshall, a mapmaker who studied the earthworks in the 1800s, figured that the mistake in the building was less than 6 inches across the whole site. 6 inches across structures, hundreds of feet big. That is a level of exactness that would be hard for modern building tools done by people using what we assume were simple tools. Here is where the mystery gets even deeper. The Newark site was not just mathematically exact, it was lined up with many sky events at the same time. The 8-sided shape follows the moon's 186-year cycle perfectly. The Great Circle lines up with several star positions. The whole place seems to work as a huge sky calculator, able to guess sky events decades before they happen. Professor Ray Hively of Ulm College spent years writing down these alignments. His work suggests the builders had not just sky-watching knowledge, but guessing skills that needed understanding of complex math links between Earth and how the sky moves. We are talking about very early people who may have known more about the stars than Europeans centuries later. But the Newark Earthworks hide an even stranger secret. Special radar has shown that the dirt shapes we can see that are only the top layer of a much more complex build. Below ground are more geometric patterns, rooms, and structures that suggest the whole place worked as something far more advanced than a simple ceremony center. Some experts think Newark shows proof of contact with advanced societies from other continents. The geometry rules built into its design appear in ancient math writings from Babylon, Egypt, and Greece. How did these specific shape relationships show up in early Ohio centuries before they were formally worked out in the Old World? Dr. Bradley Lepper has recorded more than 20 different star alignments within the Newark site. That is not a coincidence. That is on purpose, design needing generations of sky watching and math. The builders were not just watching the sky. They were making a lasting record of how the sky moves, in dirt and stone. Local history from the Shawnee and Delaware people speaks of Newark as a place where star people once walked. With humans, these spoken stories describe beings who taught advanced knowledge of math, stars, and building skills. Is this myth or a cultural memory of real contact with unknown people? The shape relationships at Newark show up in sacred buildings all over the globe. The same math rules appear at Stonehenge, the pyramids, and old temples from India to Peru. Either this means each place found these universal math truths on their own, or it is proof of shared knowledge among ancient societies we think were separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years. New radar studies have shown the Newark site may have first included water features that made its sound quality stronger. Sound waves bouncing off the geometric earthworks would have made special echo patterns. Was this ancient building made not just for star watching, But for sound effects, we are only starting to understand. Chapter 3. The Hopewell Puzzle between 100 BC and 400 AD. A society grew in the Ohio River Valley that makes us question all we think we know about early America. The Hopewell culture made trade networks that reached for thousands of miles, worked with materials from across the continent, and left behind objects that suggest skills far beyond what standard science gives to hunter-gatherer groups. But calling them hunter-gatherers is where the story starts to not make sense. New digs have shown proof of complex metalwork, detailed engineering, and artistic skill that matches anything made in the classical world. These were not simple tribal people, just getting by. These were advanced societies with special knowledge that vanished as mysteriously as it appeared. The Hopewell traded black glass from Yellowstone, copper from Lake Superior, shells from the Gulf Coast, and silver from places modern rock experts still have not found. We are talking about supply lines that stretch for thousands of miles, needing organization and communication networks we did not think existed in early America. Here is what keeps scientists up at night. Some Hopewell objects are made from materials not found naturally in North America. Study of certain metal. Things has shown mixes of metals that need melting methods not used in the Americas until Europeans arrived. How are early peoples making metal mixes using dot skills that would not be found again for over 1,000 years? The Hopewell ceremony sites show engineering knowledge that is hard to explain. The earthworks at places like Cahokia had advanced water drainage, dot systems, raised walkways, and base building methods that kept them from sinking. Even though they were built on flood-prone riverland, these were not simple mounds. These were engineered structures that needed advanced understanding of water flow, soil, and building. But here is where things get truly weird. Hopewell burial sites have given us objects that should not exist based on what we know of early American skill. Crystal lenses shaped to exact optical specs, metal mirrors polished to almost modern quality, shape carvings that show math knowledge of complex three-dimensional relationships. Some of these objects are so advanced that early scientists refused to believe they were really from that early time. The famous Newark holy stones, found in the 1860s, had Hebrew writing and were first called fakes. New study, however, suggests they might be real objects, raising uncomfortable questions about contact across the oceans centuries before Columbus. The Hopewell also left behind proof of star knowledge that matches ancient Babylon. Their ceremony sites line up with star positions, planet movements, and eclipse cycles. The 8-sided earthworks at Newark can guess moon eclipses decades ahead. This is not casual sky watching. This is advanced math-based star science. Dr. William Roma has recorded more than 50 different star alignments in Hopewell earthworks across Ohio. The exactness of these alignments suggests the builders had not just watching skills, but outguessing math models that let them predict sky events far into the future. How did early peoples create such advanced star abilities? New digs at Hopewell sites have found proof of what looked like early workshops with tools and methods that should not have existed for another 1,000 years. Exact drilling tools, advanced metal furnaces, and optical grinding wheels have all been found in layers that are older than their supposed invention by centuries. The Hopewell trade networks reached far beyond North America. Objects with clear Hopewell art styles have been found at science sites across Central America, the Caribbean, and maybe even South America. This suggests contact and trade that covered the whole Western Hemisphere, going against standard ideas of early isolation. But maybe most mysterious of all is how the Hopewell Society simply disappeared. Around 400 AD, the trade networks fell apart. The ceremony centers were left empty, and the advanced skills vanished. No war, no environmental disaster, no clear reason for the sudden end of one of early America's most advanced societies. Chapter 4. Ohio's Hidden History. In the dusty storage rooms of the Smithsonian are thousands of objects that tell a very different story about Ohio's ancient past than any scub. Giant skeletons, impossible objects, and proof of advanced societies that mainstream science has quietly buried under. Layers of academic rules and institutional denial. The 19th century was a golden age of discovery in Ohio. Farmers plowing fields often found burial mounds, groups of objects, and bone remains that painted a picture of early America far more complex and mysterious than our current understanding suggests. But somewhere along the way, many of these finds vanished from the historical record. Let us start with the giants. Between 1870 and 1920, many newspapers across Ohio wrote about finding unusually large human skeletons. 7-foot skeletons here, 8-foot remains there, 9-foot giants found in burial mounds across the state. Were these just exciting newspaper stories or proof of early people who do not fit our current ideas? The Smithsonian apparently collected many of these bone remains, but they have since disappeared from public sight. Official reasons range from wrong labeling to loss during storage changes. Critics suggest a more on-purpose cover-up meant to hide proof that goes against established science stories. Abraham Lincoln himself talked about the Ohio giants in an 1848 speech, describing the race of giants that once lived in the Ohio Valley. Lincoln was not known for wild guesses or conspiracy ideas. He was talking about finds that were common knowledge in his time, but have since been quietly forgotten by mainstream history. Recent record requests show the Smithsonian does have bone remains from Ohio that are much bigger than modern human averages. However, these remains are not available for public study or outside analysis. Why? The secrecy around what should be simple science samples. But the giants are only the start. Ohio's hidden history includes objects that suggest skills far beyond what traditional timelines give to early America. Metal things showing proof of advanced metalwork, stone carvings showing knowledge of complex math, crystal objects shaped to optical exactness. The newer holy stones are maybe the most argued about find in Ohio science, found in the 1860s buried in ancient earthworks. These carved stones have Hebrew, Greek, and other Old World writing. Mainstream science calls them 19th century fakes, but new studies suggest they may be real objects that are older than European contact by centuries. If the Newark stones are real, they are physical proof of contact across the ocean that goes against basic ideas about early American isolation. No wonder they have been put in museum storage instead of serious academic study. Special radar scans of Ohio's big earthwork sites have shown large underground room systems that have never been officially dug up. These underground oddities suggest the visible earthworks are only the top layer of much more complex below-ground builds. Why have these rooms not been explored? Official reasons talk about respect for Native American cultural feelings and protection of science sites. Unofficial ideas suggest worry about what might be found. What if these rooms hold objects? Or proof that would force a complete rewrite of American early history? Local stories among Ohio's native peoples speak of huge underground room systems holding libraries of stone tablets, advanced objects, and saved knowledge from ancient societies. These tales have been regularly called myth. But what if they are cultural memories of real finds? New study of metal objects from Ohio's early sites has shown metal mixes that need melting methods not thought to be used in the Americas until European contact. Some things contain metals not found naturally anywhere in North America. How did early peoples get and work with materials not available on the continent? The famous Bat Creek writing found in Tennessee, but with clear links to Ohio's Hopewell culture, has Hebrew letters older than European contact by over 1,000 years. Mainstream science has spent decades trying to prove this object fake, but recent writing analysis keeps supporting it as real. Maybe most troubling of all is the planned destruction of Ohio's science sites over the last 2 centuries. Thousands of burial mounds have been flattened for farming and building. Countless objects have vanished into private collections or storage where they cannot be studied. It is almost as if there has been a deliberate effort to erase proof of Ohio's complex early past. Chapter 5. The Mound Builder Mystery for over 2 centuries. The identity of Ohio's mound builders has stayed one of American science's biggest unsolved puzzles. Who were these people who moved millions of cubic yards of dirt to make some of the most advanced star and shaped builds in the early world? And why does every try to answer this question seem to create more mysteries than answers? The standard story tells us various Native American cultures, including the Adena, Hopewell, and Fort ancient peoples, were the ones who made Ohio's earthworks. But this reason raises more questions than it answers. How did what we think were simple hunter-gatherer groups grow the organization skills, math, knowledge, and star understanding needed for these huge building projects? We are talking about moving literally millions of tons of dirt using nothing but baskets and digging sticks. The Octagon Earthworks alone needed digging up and moving over 3 million cubic yards of soil. That is a building project needing thousands of workers laboring for decades. What kind of social organization could plan such huge efforts? But the planning is only the start of the puzzle. The math exactness of Ohio's earthworks suggests knowledge that goes far beyond basic building skills. Complex shape, relationships, advanced star alignments, and engineering answers that would not be found again for centuries all point to societies with advanced technical abilities. New study of pollen from the earthwork sites has found something unexpected. During the height of mound building, the land around was heavily farmed with crops that do not appear in the standard science bound record. These were not simple farming groups. These were complex societies able to support large numbers of people through intense farming. Here is where the mystery gets deeper. GenePod study of bone remains from Ohio's burial mounds has found DNA that does not match modern Native American groups. Some samples show gene markers linked to Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and even Pacific Island peoples. How did people with such different gene backgrounds end up buried in Ohio's early earthworks? The standard science timeline says the main mound building cultures appeared and vanished over about 1,500 years, but new dating has shown a much more complex timeline. Some earthworks seem to be much older than we thought, while others show proof of building and rebuilding over thousands of years. What if the mound builders were not one culture or even a series of related cultures? What if Ohio served as some kind of early meeting place where different people from across the world came together to make these amazing monuments? The proof for long-distance trade, different gene backgrounds, and advanced knowledge systems all point this way. The spoken histories of Ohio's native peoples are very consistent about the mound builders. Many tribes describe the earthworks as being built by the old ones, people who had advanced knowledge and abilities lost over time. These are not creation myths. These are detailed historical accounts passed down through generations. Some of these spoken histories describe the mound builders as coming from across the great waters, bringing with them knowledge of ours, and building methods. Other stories talk of the mound builders as teachers who shared their knowledge with local people before mysteriously leaving. What is especially interesting is that similar spoken histories exist among native peoples all across the Americas, from the Pacific Northwest to the Southeast. Tribal histories speak of ancient people who built great earthworks and then vanished, leaving only their amazing builds in the memory of their advanced knowledge. New radar surveys have shown Ohio's earthwork sites are far bigger than we understood. Many places that seem to be single builds are actually parts of much larger linked systems connected by raised walkways, water channels, and lined-up earthworks stretching for miles. This suggests a level of area planning and coordination that would have needed advanced communication networks and central organization. We are not talking about separate tribal groups building isolated ceremony centers. We are looking at proof of complex linked societies working across huge areas. But maybe the most puzzling part of the mound builder mystery is how these advanced societies simply vanished from the science record. Around 1000 to 4000 AD, the big earthwork building stopped. The trade networks collapsed and the math and star knowledge disappeared. What happened to these advanced early societies? Chapter 6. Underwater Secrets of Lake Erie. Below the moving waters of Lake Erie lies proof that could completely change our understanding of early America. Soundwave surveys have shown what look like human-made structures, geometric patterns, and maybe even ruins scattered across the lake to bottom. But these finds raise hard questions about when they were built and how they ended up underwater. The key issue is water level. Lake Erie did not reach its current depth until the end of the last ice age about 10,000 years ago. Any human-made structures on the lake bottom would have had to be built when the area was dry land. Pushing possible building dates back to the Stone Age. That is thousands of years before advanced societies were thought to exist anywhere in the Americas. Commercial fishermen have been reporting odd sound wave readings from Lake Erie for decades, geometric shapes too regular to be natural, straight features that stretch for miles across the lake bottom, and what look like round structures placed in patterns that suggest on-purpose arrangement. But these reports have been mostly ignored by mainstream science. In 2001, special sound wave surveys done by NOAA showed what researchers called odd dot features on the Lake Erie bottom. These features show geometric regularity and human-made qualities that could not be explained by known rock processes. However, detailed study of these oddities has been limited by money issues and institutional hesitation to follow, argued about fines. Local Native American stories speak of a time when Lake Erie was a huge plain dotted with settlements and ceremony centers. These spoken histories describe great cities that were flooded when the waters rose at the end of the Ice Age. Mainstream science calls these flood myths common to many cultures. But what if they are actual historical memories? New study of soil cores from Lake Erie has shown pollen that points to extensive human living on the lake bottom area during the late Ice Age. These are not just signs of human presence. These are signs of large-scale land change, farming, and permanent settlement during a time when such societies were not thought to exist in North America. Underwater exploration of the Great Lakes has been slowed by cold water, poor visibility, and institutional doubt about early underwater sites. However, hobby divers and researchers have recorded what look like stone structures lined up big stones and even carved stones in the deep parts of Lake Erie and other Great Lakes. The most interesting finds have been made near Kelly's Island, where underwater surveys have shown what look like stone circles, straight lines of large rocks, and carved pictures that can only be seen during times of very low water. These features show clear proof of human change, but their underwater locations suggest they are far older than any known early cultures in the region. Special radar surveys done from the surface have shown extensive straight features under the lake mud. These features show the geometric regularity linked with human building rather than natural rock processes. Some stretch for miles across the lake bottom in perfectly straight lines that would need advanced map-making skills to build. What is especially puzzling is that some of these underwater features seem to line up with major sky events, just like Ohio's above-ground earthworks. If confirmed, this would suggest early people were able to make star-line builds that covered both land and what is now underwater land. Countless objects have vanished into private collections or storage where they cannot be studied. It is almost as if there has been a deliberate effort to erase proof of Ohio's complex early past. Chapter 5. The Mound Builder Mystery. For over 2 centuries, the identity of Ohio's mound builders has stayed one of American science's biggest unsolved puzzles. Who were these people who moved millions of cubic yards of dirt to make some of the most advanced star and shape builds in the early world? And why does every try to answer this question seem to create more mysteries than answers? The standard story tells us various Native American cultures, including the Adena, Hopewell, and Fort Ancient peoples, were the ones who made Ohio's earthworks. But this reason raises more questions than it answers. How did what we think were simple hunter-gatherer groups grow the organization skills, dot math, knowledge, mush, and star understanding needed for these huge building projects? We are talking about moving literally millions of tons of dirt using nothing but baskets and digging sticks. The Octagon earthworks alone needed digging up and moving over 3 million cubic yards of soil. That is a building project needing thousands of workers, laboring for decades. What kind of social organization could plan such huge efforts? But the planning is only the start of the puzzle. The math exactness of Ohio's earthworks suggests knowledge that goes far beyond basic building skills, complex shape relationships, advanced star alignments, and engineering answers that would not be found again for centuries, all point to societies with advanced technical abilities. New study of pollen from the earthwork sites has found something unexpected. During the height of mound building, the land around was heavily farmed with crops that do not appear in the standard science record. These were not simple farming groups. These were complex societies able to support large numbers of people through intense farming. Here is where the mystery gets deeper. Gene study of bone remains from Ohio's burial mounds has found DNA that does not match modern Native American groups. Some samples show gene markers linked to Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and even Pacific Island peoples. How did people with such different gene backgrounds end up buried in Ohio's early earthworks? The standard science timeline says the main mound building cultures appeared and vanished over about 1,500 years. But new dating has shown a much more complex timeline. Some earthworks seem to be much older than we thought, while others show proof of building and rebuilding over thousands of years. What if the mound builders were not one culture or even a series of related cultures? What if Ohio served as some kind of early meeting place where different people from across the world came together to make these amazing monuments? The proof for long-distance trade, different gene backgrounds, and advanced knowledge systems all point this way. The spoken histories of Ohio's native peoples are very consistent about the mound builders. Many tribes describe the earthworks as being built by the old ones, people who had advanced knowledge and abilities lost over time. These are not creation myths. These are detailed historical accounts passed down through generations. Some of these spoken histories describe the mound builders as coming from across the great waters, bringing with them knowledge of stars, math, and building methods. Other stories talk of the mound builders as teachers who shared their knowledge with local people before mysteriously leaving. What is especially interesting is that similar spoken histories exist among native peoples all across the Americas, from the Pacific Northwest to the Southeast. Tribal histories speak of ancient people who built great earthworks and then vanished, leaving only their amazing builds in the memory of their advanced knowledge. New radar surveys have shown Ohio's earthwork sites are far bigger than we understood. Many places that seem to be single builds are actually parts of much larger linked systems connected by raised walkways, water channels, and lined-up earthworks stretching for miles. This suggests a level of area planning and coordination that would have needed advanced communication networks and central organization. We are not talking about separate tribal groups building isolated ceremony centers. We are looking at proof of complex linked societies working across huge areas. But maybe the most puzzling part of the mound builder mystery is how these advanced societies simply vanished from the science record. Around 1000 to 400 AD, the big earthwork building stopped. The trade networks collapsed and the math and star knowledge disappeared. What happened to these advanced early societies? Chapter 6. Underwater Secrets of Lake Erie. Below the moving waters of Lake Erie lies proof that could completely change our understanding of early America. Soundwave surveys have shown what looked like human-made structures, geometric patterns, and maybe even ruins scattered across the lake bottom. But these finds raise hard questions about when they were built and how they ended up underwater. The key issue is water level. Lake Erie did not reach its current depth until the end of the last ice age about 10,000 years ago. Any human-made structures on the lake bottom would have had to be built when the area was dry land, pushing possible building dates back to the Stone Age. That is thousands of years before advanced societies were thought to exist anywhere in the Americas. Commercial fishermen have been reporting odd sound wave readings from Lake Erie for decades. Geometric shapes too regular to be natural, straight features that stretch for miles across the lake bottom, and what look like round structures placed in patterns that suggest on-purpose arrangement. But these reports have been mostly ignored by mainstream science. In 2001, special sound wave surveys done by NOAA showed what researchers called odd features on the Lake Erie bottom. These features showed geometric regularity and human-made qualities that could not be explained by known rock processes. However, detailed study of these oddities has been limited by money issues and institutional hesitation to follow, argued about fines. Local Native American stories speak of a time when Lake Erie was a huge plain dotted with settlements and ceremony centers. These spoken histories describe great cities that were flooded when the waters rose at the end of the Ice Age. Mainstream science calls these flood myths common to many cultures. But what if they are actual historical memories? New study of soil cores from Lake Erie has shown pollen that points to extensive human living on the lake bottom area during the late Ice Age. These are not just signs of human presence. These are signs of large-scale land change, farming, and permanent settlement during a time when such societies were not thought to exist in North America. Underwater exploration of the Great Lakes has been slowed by cold water, by poor visibility, and institutional doubt about early underwater sites. However, hobby divers and researchers have recorded what look like stone structures, lined up big stones, and even carved stones in the deep parts of Lake Erie and other Great Lakes. The most interesting finds have been made near Kelly's Island, where underwater surveys have shown what looked like stone circles. Straight lines of large rocks and carved pictures that can only be seen during times of very low water. These features show clear proof of human change, but their underwater location suggests they are far older than any known early cultures in the region. Special radar surveys done from the surface have shown extensive but straight features under the lake mud. These features show the geometric regularity linked with the human building rather than natural rock processes. Some stretch for miles across the lake bottom in perfectly straight lines that would need advanced map-making skills to build. What is especially puzzling is that some of these underwater features seem to line up with major sky events, just like Ohio's above-ground earthworks. If confirmed, this would suggest early people were able to make star-aligned builds that covered both land and what is now underwater land. The ideas are huge. If Lake Erie has real early ruins, it would push back the timeline for advanced societies in North America by thousands of years. It would also suggest these societies had sailing abilities and navigation knowledge that let them travel and live in the Great Lakes area during the late Ice Age. But here is the really strange part. Climate change is lowering Great Lakes water levels to never-before-seen modern lows, possibly showing underwater features hidden for thousands of years. As the waters go down, we may be at the start of science finds that could completely reshape our understanding of early America. New finds of what look like human-made stone structures in Lake Huron and Lake Michigan suggest underwater. Science in the Great Lakes may be the next new area in understanding early America. These finds are forcing scientists to consider the possibility that advanced societies lived in the Great Lakes area thousands of years earlier than we believed. The challenge is institutional resistance to starting studies that could overturn established science timelines. Underwater science is expensive and technically hard, but more importantly, finding real early ruins under the Great Lakes would force a basic rewrite of American early timelines that many institutions do not want to do. Chapter 7. The Chillicothe Cylinder Seals in a Private Collection in Chillicothe, Ohio. Sit objects that should not exist based on everything we know about early American societies. Stone cylinder seals with wedge-shaped writing, identical in style and method to those made in ancient Mesopotamia, thousands of years ago. The problem: these seals were reportedly found in Ohio burial mounds, raising impossible questions about contact across the ocean in early times. Cylinder seals were advanced record-keeping tools used all over the ancient Middle East for writing down deals, marking ownership, and making official papers. The process of making them needed advanced knowledge of stone carving, writing systems, and organization. These were not simple, pretty objects. These were the technology of advanced literate societies. The Chillicothe seals have wedge-shaped writing that appears to be real ancient Mesopotamian writing. Writing analysis has found Sumerian, Akkadian, and other ancient languages written with correct grammar and real ancient writing style. This is not poor copying. This is advanced writing showing skill in some of humanity's earliest written languages. But how did real Mesopotamian cylinder seals end up in Ohio burial mounds? The standard reason is they are either modern fakes or mixed-up pieces from private collections put with real science material. However, several seals showed clear proof of being buried for long periods and were reportedly found in undisturbed science layers. The fine circumstances are admittedly problematic. Most were found by hobby collectors rather than professional scientists, and detailed location information is limited. However, similar objects have been found across the Ohio Valley in what look like real early layers, suggesting a pattern rather than single oddities. New study using electron microscopes has shown making methods on some seals that match ancient Mesopotamian production tool marks. Carving methods and material makeup all match examples from real Middle East science sites. If these are fakes, they are very advanced ones made with knowledge and methods not available to 19th century fakers. But the Chillicothe seals are not single oddities. Similar objects have been found across the Americas, from Mexico to Chile, all bearing relooking wedge-shaped writing and showing proof of ancient making. Either there is a continent-wide group of fakers making impossibly advanced fakes, or these objects are real proof of contact across the ocean. The writing itself talks about trade goods, star watching, and land features that may match American locations. Some mention copper mining, which would fit with Ohio's early copper industry. Others describe star alignments that match those found in Ohio's earthworks. Coincidence or proof of real historical links? Professor Cyrus Gordon of Brandeis University, a top expert in ancient Middle Eastern languages, said several of the Ohio writings were real ancient writing. Gordon argued the language proof for contact across the ocean was too strong to ignore, despite resistance from mainstream science. Local spoken stories among Ohio's native peoples talk about ancient visitors who brought knowledge of writing, stars, and metal work. These stories describe bearded foreigners who arrived by water and set up trade with local people. Could these cultural memories save real historical contact with Middle Eastern societies? The timing is problematic, but not impossible. The seals seem to date to about the same time as Ohio's major earthwork building, around 200 BC to 400 A. This matches the height of Roman power in the Mediterranean when trade networks reached across huge distances and sailing technology could manage trips across the ocean. New finds of what looked like ancient European and Middle Eastern objects in other American science. Sites have forced experts to rethink the possibility of early contact across the ocean. The Bat Creek writing, the lost lunar stones, and other finds suggest a pattern of Old World contact mainstream science has been hesitant to accept. The ideas are big. If the Chillicothe seals are real, they are physical proof that literate societies from the ancient Middle East made contact with early America. This would completely change our understanding of ancient sailing abilities, trade networks, and how connected early societies were. But realness is still hotly debated. The lack of professional science digging, the suspicious circumstances of some finds, and the world-changing ideas of accepting these objects as real have created institutional resistance that may be stopping fair study of potentially earth-shaking science proof. Chapter 8. The Alligator Mound Oddity in rural Licking County, Ohio. A huge earthen shape stretches across the land in the form of an alligator. But here's the problem. Alligators have never lived in Ohio. The closest alligator groups are hundreds of miles south in areas early Ohio people had no known contact with. So why did they build a huge monument to a creature they should never have seen? The Alligator Mound is over 200 feet long and is one of Ohio's most puzzling animal-shaped earthworks. Unlike other animal shapes that show local wildlife, this huge build shows a creature completely foreign to the Ohio Valley. The exactness of body details suggests the builders knew alligator body structure well, not just from stories. Science dating places the mound's building during the Adena time, roughly 800 BC to 100. During this time, Ohio's weather was like today's, meaning alligators could not have lived in the area. The builders would have had to travel hundreds of miles south to see these animals, assuming they even knew they existed. But the body exactness of the shape is what makes this mystery truly confusing. The mound correctly shows alligator proportions, leg placement, and even details like the special tail ridge real alligators have. This is not a general reptile shape. This is a specific picture that shows detailed knowledge of alligator body structure. New radar surveys have shown the alligator mound is even more complex than we understood. The earthwork uses subtle land features that make the three-dimensional effect stronger, making the shape look more real when seen from special angles. This level of advanced land building suggests builders with advanced planning and doing abilities. Some experts think the mound shows not an alligator, but some other creature that by chance looks like one. However, comparing it with other animal-shaped mounds shows clear shape differences between this build and other reptile pictures. The builders were specifically showing an alligator, not just any big reptile. Local Native American spoken stories do not give clear reasons for the alligator shape. Some tales talk about great lizards that once lived in the area, but these seem to be myth rather than historical accounts. Other stories speak of the shape as a guardian spirit brought from far lands by ancient travelers. The mound star alignments add another layer to the mystery. Like many Ohio earthworks, the Alligator Mound is lined up with important sky events, suggesting it serves ceremony or watching purposes beyond simple animal picture. This mix of star knowledge and body exactness points to builders with advanced understanding of both land and sky events. Could the Alligator Mount be proof of very long travel by early Ohio people? Were the builders part of trade networks that reached far enough south to meet alligator groups? Or does the shape show something even more mysterious? Contact with people who brought knowledge of faraway creatures to the Ohio Valley. New study of the mound's building methods has shown surprising skill. The builders used different soil types to make inside water drainage systems that have stopped wear for over 2,000 years. This level of engineering knowledge suggests the mounds makers had advanced understanding of soil and water flow. The shape's location is, but also important. The Alligator Mound sits on a high flat area overlooking the Raccoon Creek Valley, placed to be seen from great distances. This was not a hidden ceremony site. This was a monument made to be seen and known by travelers moving through the area. Some other researchers have suggested even more argued about reasons for the Alligator Mound. Could it show not a modern alligator, but some extinct reptile creature that lived into early times? Could it be proof of cultural memories of Ice Age megapora that died out thousands of years earlier? The mystery gets deeper when we think that similar alligator and crocodile shapes have been found in other areas where these creatures do not naturally live. From Wisconsin to Pennsylvania, early people apparently built monuments to alligators, even though they lived hundreds of miles from the nearest groups. This suggests either very long-distance contact or shared cultural stories that spread knowledge of these creatures far beyond their natural homes. Chapter 9. Hidden Rooms of the Fort Ancient Culture between 1000 and 1658 AD. The Fort Ancient Culture lived across southern Ohio, leaving behind hilltop enclosures, village sites, and burial dive grounds that held some of the most advanced objects ever found in early America. But below these known science sites lie hidden rooms and underground places that may hold the key to understanding these mysterious people's true abilities. Special radar surveys of Fort Ancient sites have regularly shown underground oddities that suggest extensive below-ground building. These are not natural caves or simple storage holes. These are engineered spaces with geometric regularity and building features that point to on-purpose underground building. The Sunwatch Indian Dot Village near Dayton is one of the most studied Fort Ancient sites. But even here, underground surveys have shown room systems that have never been dug up. These underground features seem to be connected by tunnel networks that reach far beyond the visible village borders. New electromagnetic surveys at Fort Ancient hilltop sites have found what look like large, empty spaces under the earthwork walls. These holes are too regular and big to be natural, suggesting the visible earthworks are only the top layer of much more complex underground builds. But why would the Fort Ancient people put huge effort into underground building? The official reasons suggest storage and ceremony purposes. But the size and skill of the underground features suggest something far more important. We are talking about engineering projects that would challenge modern building abilities. The Fort Ancient culture made objects that show skills far beyond what standard science gives to early America. Copper mixes with makeups that need advanced metalwork. Crystal lenses shaped to optical exactness. Stone carvings showing math knowledge of complex three-dimensional relationships. At the Fort Ancient earthwork itself, the huge hilltop enclosure covers over 100 acres of advanced defensive building. But electromagnetic surveys suggest the visible walls are connected to extensive underground networks that may have served as communication systems, storage places, or safe areas during conflict. Local stories among the Shawnee and other Ohio tribes speak of huge underground cities that once lived under the hills of southern Ohio. These tales describe room systems filled with saved knowledge, advanced objects, and the remains of the old ones who built the above-ground earthworks. Are these myth stories or cultural memories of real underground places? The objects found at Fort Ancient sites include things that should not exist based on our understanding of early skill. Perfectly round stone dot balls needing exact grinding methods. metal decorations showing proof of lost wax casting, mica sheets cut into exact geometric shapes that have no clear practical use. But maybe most interesting are reports of rooms found and then mysteriously sealed by early scientists. In the 1890s, several digs at Fort Ancient sites reportedly found underground rooms holding stone tablets, advanced objects, and bone remains that did not match known early populations. These finds were quickly covered up and taken out of the science record. Dr. Gerard Fowle, an early scientist who worked a lot in Ohio in the early 1900s, made detailed notes about underground rooms at Fort Ancient sites. His field books describe stone-lined rooms, human-carved tunnels, and object groups that showed technological skill far beyond contemporary Native American abilities. These books are still in Smithsonian storage, but are not available for public research. New tries to use modern survey methods at Fort Ancient sites have been slowed by institutional rules and worries about disturbing sensitive science areas. However, hobby researchers using store-bought special radar have recorded extensive underground oddities that suggest the underground places are far bigger than officially said. The timing of the Fort Ancient cultures, height matches a time of climate change and social upset across much of North America. Did these people go underground because of environmental pressures? Were the room system's defensive builds made to protect against unknown threats? Some experts think the Fort Ancient underground places show proof of contact with advanced societies from other continents. The skilled engineering methods, advanced objects, and sudden appearance of complex skills all point to knowledge transfer from unknown sources. The spoken stories of Ohio's native peoples have very consistent accounts of underground, safe systems used during times of great disaster. These stories describe room networks that let whole populations survive periods when the above-ground world became unlivable. Could these be cultural memories of real events? Chapter 10. The Port South Earthworks Plan in the southern Ohio city of Portsmouth. What may be the most advanced star complex in early America lies buried under modern development, hidden on purpose by 2 centuries of planned destruction and official ignoring. The Portsmouth Earthworks once matched Newark in size and complexity, so complex that today most people do not even know they existed. The original Port South place covered over 20 square miles and used many geometric earthworks, star alignments, and advanced water control systems. Early map makers described it as the most impressive early build they had ever seen. So why has it almost disappeared from both the land and the historical record? The answer is a pattern of on-purpose destruction that started almost as soon as European settlers arrived in the area. Unlike other Ohio earthworks saved by chance or land isolation, the Port South place was systematically taken apart to make way for farming, industry, and city growth. But was this simply progress or something more on purpose? Early maps and surveys record the Port South earthworks in amazing detail, showing geometric exactness that matches the most advanced ancient builds anywhere in the world. The place used many circular enclosures, 8-sided structures, and straight earthworks that created star-line sightlines across the whole Scioto River Valley. What is especially suspicious is how quickly and completely the earthworks were destroyed after European contact. Most other Ohio earthworks were at least partly saved, even those in heavily built areas. But Port South's ancient monuments were wiped out with an efficiency that suggests on-purpose intent. Rather than casual development pressure, the few saved pieces of the Port South place show star alignments even more advanced than those at Newark. The remaining earthworks follow many sky cycles at the same time, suggesting the builders had math and watching abilities that would not be matched by European science for centuries. But here is where the plan ideas start to make disturbing sense. Port South sits where the Scioto and Ohio rivers meet, making it one of the most strategically important spots in the Ohio Valley. If ancient people had advanced knowledge or skills, this would be exactly the kind of place they would pick for a major center. Local stories talk of huge treasure stores hidden in the Portsmouth earthworks before their destruction. Tales describe rooms filled with gold objects, crystal things, and stone tablets covered with unknown writing. These stories were called folklore until modern metal detector surveys of the area started finding objects that matched the story descriptions. New study of 19th century photos has shown some Port South earthworks use huge stone building not recorded in official science reports. Massive stone walls, exactly fitted blocks, and carved big stones were apparently destroyed along with the dirt builds, but their existence was systematically left out of the historical record. The destruction of the Portsmouth earthworks sped up dramatically after the Civil War, matching the growth of federal authority and the creation of national science institutions. Was this timing by chance or part of a planned policy to hide proof that went against official stories about American early development? Dr. F.M. Squire, one of America's early scientists, did extensive surveys of the Port South earthworks in the 1840s. His detailed maps and measurements record geometric skill that matches ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian builds. However, most of Squire's Portsmouth records have been taken from public access and remain in restricted institutional storage. The pattern of systematic destruction goes beyond just the earthworks themselves. Historical papers, photos, and object collections related to Portsmouth have shown a surprising tendency to disappear from public institutions or become unavailable for research. It is as if someone has been on purpose erasing proof of the site's true importance. Modern tries to map the original size of the Portsmouth earthworks using historical papers, air photos, and special radar have been slowed by institutional resistance and legal rules. Several promising research projects have been stopped or lost money just as they started giving interesting results. But the most disturbing part of the Portsmouth plan is what it suggests about other Ohio earthwork sites. If Portsmouth was on purpose destroyed to hide proof of advanced early societies, how many other sites have suffered similar fates? How much proof of Ohio's true ancient has been systematically erased from history? Local researchers have recorded over 200 earthwork sites in southern Ohio destroyed since European contact. Many showed proof of skilled building, star alignments, and advanced engineering before their destruction. The systematic nature of this destruction suggests coordination rather than random development pressure. Chapter 11, The Crystal Skulls of Mound City. Deep in the collections of the Mound City Group, National Monument lie objects that challenge our understanding of early American skill and possibly reality itself. Crystal skulls carved with an exactness modern technology can barely achieve, found in Ohio burial mounds and then quietly taken from public view by government authorities. The official story is these crystal objects are either modern fakes or misidentified natural shapes, but the recorded proof tells a different tale. Many separate sources from the 19th and early 20th centuries describe crystal skull finds in Ohio earthworks, all showing similar qualities and skilled carving methods. Warren Moorhead, one of Ohio's most respected early scientists, recorded finding at least 3 crystal skulls in Mount City group digs between 1891 and .1922. His field notes describe objects carved for single pieces of quartz crystal with body exactness that would need advanced knowledge of human skull shape. But here is what makes these finds truly strange. The crystal skulls show no tool marks. Modern study has failed to figure out how they were carved. The exactness of body details, the dyed optical clarity of the crystal, and the lack of making proof all point to production methods we cannot copy with current technology. The skulls reportedly found at Mount City were made from different kinds of crystal, suggesting many sources and possibly different time periods of making. Some were clear quartz, others smoky quartz, and at least one was described as carved from amethyst. The variety suggests an established tradition of crystal skull production rather than single oddities. New tries to find these objects in official collections have been blocked by paperwork problems and claims the skulls are either lost, too damaged to study, or never existed at all. However, photo proof from the early 20th century clearly shows crystal skulls in museum displays labeled as Ohio earthwork finds. The crystal skull happening goes far beyond Ohio. Similar objects have been reported from science sites across the Americas, from Canada to Central America. The consistency of design, carving methods, and mysterious making ways suggests either widespread cultural exchange or shared technological abilities among early American societies. What is especially disturbing is the pattern of official denial and proof hiding around crystal skull finds. Objects that were prominently shown in museums during the early 1900s have mysteriously disappeared or been relabeled as modern-type fakes without convincing reason for the change in status. Local Native American stories have detailed accounts of crystal skull objects and their ceremony importance. These spoken histories describe the skulls as holding saved knowledge, working as communication devices, and having qualities modern science does not recognize. Are these myth beliefs or descriptions of real skills we do not understand? Some experts think the crystal skulls show proof of lost early skills that used understanding of crystal qualities, optical physics, and possibly even quantum effects. The exact carving, optical clarity, and reported unusual qualities all suggest abilities beyond current technological understanding. The timing of dot crystal skull finds in Ohio matches the peak times of earthwork building, suggesting they were important parts of the early ceremony dot places rather than later additions. If real, these objects are physical proof of technological skill that completely changes our understanding of early American abilities. New developments in crystal technology and quantum physics have shown qualities of quartz crystal not understood when the Ohio skulls were first found. Modern research has shown that exactly carved quartz can show optical sound and even electromagnetic effects that might explain some of the unusual qualities given to the skulls. But the most interesting part of the crystal skull mystery is what it suggests about the true abilities of Ohio's early societies. If these people had the knowledge and technology to make exactly carved crystal objects, what other advanced abilities might they have had that have been lost or hidden? The systematic removal of crystal skulls from public view, combined with official denials they exist, follows a pattern seen with other odd Ohio science finds. It is as if there has been a planned effort to hide proof that goes against established stories about early American technological development. Chapter 12. The Serpent's Shadow. The sound of mysteries hidden in the curves of Ohio's Great Serpent Mound is a sound happening. Modern science is just starting to understand. The earthwork does not just follow dot sky movements. It changes sound waves in ways that create special hearing effects, noticeable only at certain spots within the structure. But how did early people develop such advanced understanding of sound engineering? New studies using sensitive sound equipment have shown the serpent mound's waving shape creates a complex pattern of sound bounce and echo. Voices spoken at special points within the earthwork are made louder, changed, or completely silenced at others. The whole structure seems to work as a huge sound instrument made to change human hearing. Dr. Stephen Waller, a sound scientist who has studied early sites around the world, has recorded amazing sound qualities at the Serpent Mound that match those found at skilled ancient builds like Stonehenge and Egypt's pyramids. The exactness needed to create these effects suggests knowledge of advanced sound rules not formally understood until the modern time. But the sound engineering goes beyond simple sound change. The earthwork seems to be tuned to special sound wave frequencies that match changed mind states recorded in spiritual and ceremony practices. Sounds made at certain points within the mound can cause hearing dreams, rhythm matching, and what modern researchers call sound driving of brainwave patterns. The ideas are huge. If early Ohio people understood how to use sound engineering to cause changed mind states, they had knowledge that mixes advanced physics with deep understanding of human brain science. This represents a level of combined science that matches modern abilities. New study has shown the sound qualities of the Serpent Mound change a lot with seasonal changes in temperature, point wetness, and air pressure. The earthwork seems to have been made to use these natural sound changes, suggesting the builders understood complex links between environmental conditions and how sound travels. Local Native American spoken stories describe ceremony practices at the Serpent Mound that use special chanting, drumming, and voice methods made to create supernatural effects. These descriptions match what modern sound science would guess from the earthwork's sound qualities. Louder voices, mysterious repeats, and sounds seeming to come from underground or the sky above. The find of sound engineering at the Serpent Mound has made researchers study sound qualities at other Ohio earthworks. First studies suggest many major sites use an on-purpose sound design features that make ceremony and social activities stronger through change of hearing. At the Newark Earthworks, researchers have recorded standing wave patterns made by the geometric earthwork walls that would make human voices and musical instruments louder at special frequencies. The eight-sided shape and circle combination seems to work as a sound echo room, able to create dramatic sound effects for large gatherings. But maybe most interesting is the find that Ohio's earthworks may have been made to work together as parts of a larger sound communication system. Sound signals started at one site could possibly be heard and recognized at distant earthworks, suggesting early people made a sound network covering hundreds of square miles. The technical knowledge needed to design such sound systems would not be found again in Western science until much later, when builders started using sound rules in cathedral and theater design. How did early Ohio people develop such advanced understanding of sound travel, echo, and mind sound effects? Some experts think the sound qualities of Ohio's earthworks show proof of contact with advanced societies that had scientific knowledge of sound change. The exactness of sound engineering and understanding of mind sound effects both suggest knowledge transfer from unknown sources. The systematic study of sound science is showing many early sites around the world used on purpose sound change features from the caves of Stone Age Europe to the temples of ancient Greece. Human societies have regularly used sound engineering to make religious, social, and ceremony activities stronger. What makes Ohio's earthworks special is the skill and size of sound engineering used in huge land monuments. These are not small sound rooms. These are continent-covering communication and ceremony systems that show technological abilities we are only starting to appreciate. The sound mysteries of Ohio's earthworks suggest early American societies had scientific knowledge that combined stars, math, engineering, and brain science into united technological systems. This represents a level of combined understanding that makes us question what we assume about the development of human knowledge. Chapter 13. The magnetic oddities of ancient Ohio. Compass needles spin wildly. Electronic equipment breaks. GPS systems lose signal. Across Ohio's ancient earthwork sites, researchers have recorded magnetic oddities that cannot be explained by known rock processes. These magnetic disturbances seem to be human-made, created on purpose by early people using methods we do not understand. The happening was first recorded systematically in the 1970s when land surveys of the Serpent Mound showed magnetic field changes that could not be explained by natural rock features. The oddities follow the exact outline of the earthwork, suggesting they are directly linked to the building rather than by chance rock shapes. New magnetometer surveys have shown almost every major Ohio earthwork site has similar magnetic oddities. The Newark Earthworks, Fort Ancient Mound City Group, and dozens of other sites and all show human-made magnetic signs that stay centuries after building. How did early people change magnetic fields with such exactness and permanence? The magnetic oddities are not random disturbances. They show geometric patterns that match the earthwork layouts, star alignments, and even sound qualities recorded at these sites. The magnetic fields seem to be another layer of skilled engineering used in these early monuments. Dr. Beatrix Clausen of Ohio State University has spent decades studying the magnetic qualities of Ohio's earthworks. Her research has shown the oddities are strongest at points that match star alignments and seem to change in strength with sky cycles. The magnetic fields are somehow matched with the sky purposes of the earthworks, but the technology needed to create human-made, magnetic fields that last for centuries is beyond current human abilities. Modern electromagnets need constant power to keep field strength. The Ohio earthworks seem to hold materials or shapes that make lasting magnetic effects without any clear power source. Study of soil samples from odd areas has shown unusual mineral makeups that might explain the magnetic effects. High amounts of magnetite, hematite, and other magnetic minerals have been found exactly where field disturbances are strongest. But these minerals do not occur naturally in Ohio soils in the amounts and shapes found at earthwork sites. This suggests early people on purpose moved and placed magnetic materials to create the field oddities. But why? What purpose would human-made magnetic fields serve in early ceremony or star places? Some experts think the magnetic oddities were made to make the mind-changing effects of the sound qualities also found at these sites stronger. New research in brain science has shown special magnetic field shapes can influence human brain activity, especially in areas linked with seeing, consciousness, and spiritual experience. The magnetic oddities at Ohio Earthworks fall within the ranges modern research has called neurologically active. Could early people have understood links between magnetic fields and human consciousness that modern science is only starting to discover? The exactness of magnetic engineering at Ohio Earthworks suggests knowledge of electromagnetic effects on human brain science not formally recognized until the late 20th century. The magnetic oddities also seem to change local wildlife behavior. Birds show different flight patterns over earthwork sites. Deer and other animals avoid certain areas during special times of year that match peak magnetic strength. Even farm animals show behavior changes when around the field oddities. Local Native American stories describe the earthwork sites as places where the medicine was strongest, where spiritual activities worked best, and where unusual experiences were common. These descriptions match very well with what modern science would guess from being around special magnetic field shapes. But maybe most interestingly, the magnetic oddities seem to be linked across different earthwork sites. Changes in field strength at one location often match same-time changes at distant sites, suggesting some form of electromagnetic communication or matching between early monuments. The ideas are big. If Ohio's early people had knowledge of electromagnetic effects on human consciousness and could engineer lasting magnetic field shapes, they had access to technologies that combine advanced physics with deep understanding of human brain science. The systematic study of magnetic oddities at early sites is showing a global pattern of electromagnetic engineering that covers continents and cultures. From Stonehenge to Easter Island, ancient people seem to have used magnetic field change in their most important monuments. What makes Ohio special is the skill and connectedness of magnetic engineering across many sites. The earthworks seem to work as parts of a larger electromagnetic system that shows technological abilities we are only starting to appreciate.